We had you on last week, and we talked about kind of the concerns like what you can do before, during a fire, or other natural disaster for that matter. But today I wanted to talk to you about what comes afterwards. So Alex, if you don't mind, could you introduce yourself for anyone who didn't listen to last week's episode? Give us just who you are, what your background is, and why people should listen to you.
Okay, glad to do it. I am Alex Varga, and I've been developing properties in Southern California for 38 years, and I love it. I love developing. I love designing out of nothing and watching the home grow out of the ground. It's been my pleasure to do that. It's something that, I love doing. And so when the fires did hit, it was pretty natural for me. The neighbors are all asking me and giving me their plans and so forth. So I do have the experience. I was in a neighborhood, 17 houses burned down our street, 400 houses burned down in our community. So I got to be right in the thick of things, went into all the meetings and was able to help as many people as I could.
Yeah, and that was in 2007. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of parallels right now with what's happening in LA as we speak. And so hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, the LA fires are going to be contained. Hopefully they'll be all the way out. That would be great. And so what's going to happen is there are going to be tens of thousands of people with damaged or destroyed properties looking for like what comes next, because they just went through this terrible experience, and a lot of them aren't going to know what they need to do to rebuild. So what would the first step be? So like your house burned down, your property damaged by the fire. What do you do next?
Well, the first thing that you do is you prepare yourself with all the emotions that go along. There's going to be a lot of emotion, and if you're a man or a woman of faith, well, that will get you through. But just as a review for those who didn't listen to the last podcast, and I encourage you to go check it out, we dealt with the realities of, hey, you have to have receipts for your furniture, for your clothing, everything that you want replaced, you have to have receipts. So start making electronic copies of all the receipts. You have to look at your insurance policy, and you have to up the part that says you get X amount of dollars for rebuilding it. So you want to make sure it's high so that you get it rebuilt, because some never look at it for 20 years and they open up and they see the clause and it's only $185,000 is all you're going to get to rebuild your house, but it's going to cost $600,000 to rebuild it. So those are a few things that we said. And then also make sure you have your computers, your laptops, your passports, everything in one area. So you just grab one box and off you go. And then you make sure you get some gasoline in all your cars and move all your cars, because they will burn down. So those are a quick review of things that you could plan for. And so hopefully when you come to this point, you've already upped the insurance and there's no games being played with you. So the reality is you just take a deep breath and you say, okay, now I have the option. Do I add 1,000 square feet, or do I just keep the house exactly the same? Because the insurance company will pay for exactly the same, like for like product and stuff. If you had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, that's all you're going to get, and that's square footage. So if it was 1,467 square feet, that's all the insurance companies are going to give you. Now, if you say, well, now this is the perfect time to add 1,000 square feet and make the house bigger, okay, great. The 100,000 is on you, and that's the reality. And most did, because they first had to deal with the reality of where are we going to live. And when you have all these people, thousands of people displaced, everyone, like the insurance rent went from $1,500 to $2,500 to $4,000. They just were really scalping, unfortunately, the people. But eventually you'll get a house, but even that's only for 6 months. The insurance company will say, after the 6 months, now you got to pay the mortgage and your house rental. And so as long as you're prepared for it, you want to get your house rebuilt as quickly as possible. And so now that's the first decision. Are we going to rebuild like for like, 1,467 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath? Or are we going to make a 5-bedroom, 4-bath? And for that, you'll have to literally sit down with an architect or a designer, or you can literally purchase them nowadays online with the style of house you want and buy the plans. And then you'll use that to submit to the city to get a building permit.
Yeah, absolutely. And our sister company, on that note, Still Builders, right downstairs, they'd be happy to talk with you about that, help you through that whole process. So stillbuilders.com. We're in San Diego, but I know we're moving an office up to LA specifically to help people displaced or with homes or properties damaged by the fire. So absolutely, they can definitely help you with that. So you could, like you said, rebuild like for like. I'd imagine that's what a lot of people do because they don't want to pay out of pocket. But can you go more into, like, why would you choose to, this time, to add on more to your property? So, like, say you had 2-bed, 3-bath, why would you up it to, like, 6-bed?
Well, and really a lot of reason why. There was probably 25% where driving back down, let's say down our street, 17 houses burned down, and you kind of looked at it, okay, they rebuilt it in the exact same, because just what you said, you don't have that extra 150 grand to make it a 5-bedroom house. So you got to do what you got to do. But those who were able and had the funds, they did build all those bigger houses because the neighborhood might be a $500,000 property values, but now it's $1 million because all these bigger houses were built and sold. So then you had a record of increase in the neighborhood. So most people said, yeah, you know what, we're going to add 1,000 square feet because now when we go to sell it 5 years from now, we'll make an extra 300 grand profit. And that was the motivation. But unless they had the money right, there's no way that they could come up to fund the 5-bedroom because unfortunately, when a neighborhood is 500,000 or valued at 500,000, that's what the bank goes by. They don't add push it up to $1 million so everyone can get approved. So it's harder to get approved when you're upping it. But some people had the money, they borrowed it from their friends and family, and they built a big, beautiful home, which, 2012, they started selling them, and they were all $1 million.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I had no idea that happens, and not to suggest like we're taking advantage of the fire or whatever in any way, but that really does sound like something that you could do. Like say you lost your house, well, silver lining, you get to build a new one. And with the new one, assuming that you have the resources or you're able to get approved from the bank, I know you said it's difficult, but there's a potential there to really increase that property value far beyond what it was before.
That is correct. Just by rebuilding it, even if you have the same square footage, but you really make the front look great or you add solar or whatever you do to the house, the value will go up at least $100,000 to $200,000. It just naturally does in Southern California.
Right, yeah, like, and if there's anyone listening from out of state, like $100,000, $200,000 out of state, that's enough to just buy a whole house.
Exactly.
And over here, we're talking about, like it'll increase it by that much, and that just must sound just crazy. But yeah, like housing prices are just that high in Southern California, which is part of the reason why investing, building equity in homes here is so profitable compared to other parts of the country.
And now, not to take advantage of a fire or a catastrophe for gain, well, you have to be real with it that you're going to get inundated with contractors coming to your property, handing you their flyer because they can't really mail it to you because they weren't delivering mail. There was no houses there to deliver to. And so literally they just get in their trucks and they start driving up and down the streets. Those people who were there at the lot looking and crying, they gave them cards and they tried to get their business that way. So there will be sources and resources coming to you. For sure, they will offer to help you rebuild. And of course, there's also the banking institutes that will also be bringing by their postcards just to refinance with them. That is just something that naturally happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're looking at a rebuilding project, you've obviously had some experience in the construction industry, right? You've been doing it longer than I've been alive, not to make you feel old. But how do you know that you're choosing the right contractor, or is there even such a thing as the right contractor for the job?
There is. You have to feel peaceful with that contractor, because the first thing you're going to do when you get a postcard, you're going to punch in that contractor's license number with the state contractors board and get a background check. Pay the whatever, $29.99. Get a background check on that contractor to see if he's defrauded people. It's so easy these days. You do everything on a computer, but you definitely want to check them out. But get 2 other bids, for heaven's sake. You get 3 bids to make sure that they're all telling you the same thing. And then you go with your gut. Who do you trust? And once you've done 3 background checks, you're going to have a good feeling of which guy or girl that you want taking care of your rebuilding.
Yeah, and we see that a lot, like it's standard practice. I think a lot of people know you should be getting a few bids, especially for something as big as rebuilding a whole house, right? And then make sure that the company or the contractor's vision is the same as yours. Like, you don't want them starting on a project and not being clear on what you want. And I think that's something that, again, Stell downstairs, they're great at that. That's like the lengthy design process so that they know that exactly what the client is looking to get out of the house. And of course, they're not the only ones who do that. There are a lot of reputable construction companies out there who are going to give you a great experience with your rebuild. But also, on that note, we've, as a roofing company, right, we've worked with a few contractors for rebuilds and additions and such that have not been great for our clients. And so that's something that you absolutely want to avoid. And I think that, yeah, by getting those background checks. I didn't know that's a thing, by the way. I know
It is.
I know you can look up, like, on the contractor board. I have no idea, like, how you'd run a background check on a company like that.
Well, there are services, and you just click on them on the internet, criminal background checks, and, for a set fee, they'll give you all his dealings as a contractor. And also, a second thing you want to pay, I think it only charges like $9.99, a credit check. Find out, does he pay his bills? Because you don't want to get stuck if he's not paying his bills. And so between a background criminal check and a credit check, now you can say, hey, you know what? I trust this guy. He has integrity. And one slight thing when you're interviewing contractors, listen to them and see if they're listening to you or if they're just already ready to tell you what they want to do. Just pay attention hey, that one contractor just listened to me. He didn't tell me what he thinks he should do. He listened to me what I'd like to do. So that is a good indication. So all of a sudden, yeah, that contractor listened to me. I did a background check. He's got, no criminal records. I did his credit check. He's got a high FICO score. That's the man I'm going to go with. And that's the honest truth. I don't know where else you're going to get this truth, but right here at this podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think people think about that.
Most don't.
I would never have known to do that. So let's shift right now into the actual construction or reconstruction. And you said last time we could get into the design and materials and stuff like that. I'm not really familiar with how you would go about that. Is there something that you would want, I guess, more in your rebuild than like someone building a new property? Or what advice do you have on that?
The advice that I have, first of all, some people built on a foundation. They didn't chisel it all down and hammer it up and get it out of there. You can't build on a cement foundation that had been burnt. A lot of people didn't know that. So the whole idea is, for heaven's sake, jackhammer that old foundation, start with a new foundation, and then in your designs, as you build it, there's a thing that I'm not going to misquote, but I'll just say a general thing that the insurance companies actually can commit to saying, and that is 98% of the fires start from the eave up. A lot of people go, it's my roof. I should have had a different, come on. Thousands of houses went down, whether they had a tile roof, a metal roof, or paper roof, right? The reality is you're going to go down if there's a wall of fire coming. However, if it's your neighbor who just has a kitchen fire, you don't want your house to go down with them. And so the ideas that I have and that I ended up doing for people is I would design the eaves not to be wooden painted eaves, but all stucco. This way, as the fires come up from the eave up, they'll hit the stucco cement and it's not going to light your house on fire. So there's something different that you can do. Do not just rebuild it with a bunch of wooden eaves and fascia boards. You don't have to do that anymore. And that may save your house down the line if your neighbor has a fire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you said like your house, if there's a full wildfire coming at you, it doesn't matter if you've got a metal roof, tile, whatever, you're still vulnerable. But yeah, for those smaller ones, and those are actually a lot, I think, more common than people think. Like maybe someone starts a small fire by accident in their kitchen or whatever. And obviously the first responders try and get there right away, put it out. But maybe they can't get there for like 30 minutes. And in those 30 minutes, you don't want to give those embers a chance to latch onto your house too. And so I think that's really important. And then this would go for people anywhere, just like figure out what kind of natural disasters happen in your area. It's going to be different if you're in like Florida, for example, and you have to deal with hurricanes than it is in Southern California, where we get wildfires and earthquakes and such like that.
You have to be aware of your surroundings. And this is a perfect time because we now have internet that we could just punch in. What are that neck of the woods before you move there? Do they have hurricanes, tornadoes, fires? What is their experience in the last 50 years? That's an easy punch in, and let Siri tell you.
Yeah, and then you can with a lot of types of, in fact, like everything except for, I feel like, earthquakes, because there's not a whole lot you can do if the ground decides it just doesn't want a building right there. Not a whole lot you can do, but like I know there are like roofing materials that can resist hurricane winds, not like a Category 5, but like a gale force winds. There's materials that can stand up to that. Here in Southern California, there are fire-resistant materials that you can use, and so consulting with, like, I think a local contractor who knows what he's doing, who's been in the business in that area for a while, they'll know what kind of things you need to be prepared for, how much that's going to cost, and whether it's worth it for you.
Well, look, I experienced and developed literally a fire-resistant house where the stucco is fire-resistant, the roof is fire-resistant, everything there are ways, and it costs about the same as 2x4s. For heaven's sake, there's all kinds of opportunities, and I'll be glad to share about it. But literally, you can put a blowtorch after it's built, and it's not going to light. It can't light.
That's amazing.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, technology has really developed itself. So really, I'll be glad to answer anyone's questions in case they call us. I'll be glad to do that.
But we can have a follow-up episode if anyone's got any questions.
Fire resistance is very real these days, and the same thing applies to tornado and hurricane winds. As long as you know how to ratchet the corners and put the right, it's all calculated, but seismic, metal, and you put it in the right place. There's some houses that I've studied. Literally, a hurricane went through. The whole neighborhood got leveled except for this one house. Because why? It was engineered to stay up even in those hurricane winds. So either way, there's lots of good news, lots of opportunity to be more fire resistant and more, hurricane proof. Whatever, there are answers. You just have to know where to look.
Yeah, and as material science keeps getting better, as our engineering methods keep getting better, it's going to just keep getting easier, more affordable to find these solutions.
They will be more affordable as things get developed so quickly and improved so quickly. Definitely the prices have gone down. And again, just think about it. You can have literally a fire-resistant house for the same cost as a 2x4. So why would you build another 2x4? It just doesn't make any sense. But most people don't know about this. And how are they going to find out? Unless they listen to a show like this and they go, wow, okay, I didn't know that. Sure, I'll be glad to pay 25% more. But really, the products are out there, and we can definitely try to be a blessing to anyone who has some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Alex, thank you so much for coming on. I think we'll cap the episode here. If anyone's got any questions, I'd love to have you back on as well. And especially as LA starts rebuilding, as we start seeing how extensive the damage is, what a modern rebuild looks like, I'm sure that there's a lot more there for us to talk about.
I'll be glad to come. Call me anytime. We'll set this up and we'll keep going. As many answers that need to be answered. That's my goal. Let's help the people who are hurting right now.
Of course. And our hearts go out to those people in LA who are affected. You can give us a call. We can direct you to Stell Builders, our sister company, or give you resources, whatever that might look like. So thank you very much for listening, for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.